my channel. My name is Lanita. I am the Scrappy Grandma on Instagram and Facebook. And this is our Torah Portion playlist. And each week we go through a portion of the first 5 books of the Bible. It's the world's oldest Bible study, and that Yeshua himself did a version of this where, and it's like when in the first century believers, the apostles, when they had their council, when they had Gentiles converting in to the way, which is basically the way. They believed on Yeshua Messiah, the Mashiach, the Messiah. And then they were like, okay, so do they need to be circumcised? How do we basically teach them Torah? And they said, that basically give them a handful of really important, and basically a lot of these people are coming out of paganism. So basically they gave them a set amount of rules that were to stop doing the things they've been doing in paganism. Don't eat meat with blood in it. Don't eat anything that's been sacrificed to idols. Don't eat anything that's been strangled. All of those were pagan practices. It's like, stop doing that and quit, whoring, and that was, it was part of the pagan practices to, for the temple prostitutes, for them to, have sex. So it's like, stop doing all those things. And then it says that that Moses is taught weekly, basically in the synagogue. So as they come weekly and listen to the Torah, because that's what they did in the synagogues, that's what they still do in the synagogues, is they read the portion for the week. And that's where then us who've been grafted in, this is how we learn to follow the way of Yeshua, our Messiah, by not doing those things, and then by reading, feasting on his Torah, his instructions, the first 5 books of the Bible, a chunk every week, to let it work in us, to reveal sin, to reveal all the things that we need to put aside and to change, and so that we can walk in covenant with him. So, all right. So, we're going to start with prayer. Father Yah, thank you so much for this opportunity to read your word. Thank you that we live in a place where your word is so readily available, and that we can feast on it as much as we want. Thank you for giving me personally the passion and the desire and the hunger and thirst to feast on your word. Thank you for answering that prayer. You are our promise keeper, and thank you so much. Holy Spirit, come and open our eyes and our ears and our hearts and our minds, so that we can receive from the living word as we read it. In each one of us, work in us, teach us how to better walk in covenant, walk in your ways, in the Torah, as we feast on your word. In Yeshua's holy name, amen. All right, so we're going to start with a commentary, and it just kind of helps set the stage for what we're going to be reading in the word, because we've grown up with a modern mindset. We have no idea who this was written to and written for and written by. They were Hebrews and lived completely different than we do. And so this helps us get our minds put into where and when and by who and whom it was written to and for. So last week's Parsha, Vayera, recounted how Yahuwah was faithful to Abraham and Sarah by miraculously giving them a son, Isaac, in their old age. However, after repeated testing, Abraham faced his greatest test of all by offering up his child, the child of promise, as a sacrifice on Mount Moriah, the place of the future temple, and then also supposedly where the Temple Mount is today. So because of Abraham's willingness to obey, Yahuwah promised that he would multiply his offspring as the stars in the heaven, and that in and that in his seed, singular, his seed, Abraham's seed, all nations of the earth will be blessed. And boy, as you read through these Torah portions and you start to realize and see, we are blessed through the seed of Abraham. And some of us may very well be some of the seed of Abraham. Because you have to realize Abraham had several sons, but this is the seed of promise. Isaac is the seed of promise. So this week's Parsha, Chayei Sarah, the life of Sarah, paradoxically begins with the account of her death. So Sarah lived 127 years. These were the years of Sarah's life. Abraham had encamped at various times at the trees of Mamre, just east of Hebron. And this is the place where Sarah, the mother of the Hebrew people, died at the age of 127. Some of the Jewish sages have said that the shock of the binding of Isaac, when Abraham bound Isaac to take him to sacrifice him, the near-death sacrifice of Isaac, is what killed her. After mourning for Sarah, Abraham spoke to the sons of Heth, saying that he was a stranger and a sojourner among them, and asked to bury his wife in a nearby cave of Machpelah, thought by the sages to be the resting place of Adam and Eve. And this is interesting because our top patriarchs were all buried in this cave, and they say Adam and Eve was as well. And Abraham knew because he studied under Melchizedek, and also, which some say is Seth. Who knows? But Seth goes all the way back to Noah. Supposedly Abraham knew that this is where Adam and Eve were buried, and so he wanted this cave to bury his wife. Abraham inquired about the price of the cave and the field, and without any negotiation paid Ephron the Hittite the asking price of 400 shekels of silver, an exorbitant price. I was studying, and I think it was like between 17 and 70 shekels was the common price for a piece of land. And so Ephraim, really inflated the price. In a full present, so he, an exorbitant price in the full presence of the leaders of the Hittites. He then buried Sarah in the cave among the people of the Hittites. Abraham's insistence upon a separate Hebrew burial site is part of the Hebrew law to this day, reflecting that the Jews' role in life and society, a stranger and a sojourner, here yet not here. Interesting. When it comes to words from the sages, it's supposedly passed down from the oral teachings, but I always like to take it with a grain of salt. So, okay. After this, Abraham's servant Eliezer, meaning my God will help, or Yahuwah will help, of Damascus, the one Abraham had originally thought would be his heir, Genesis 15:2, made a covenant with Abraham to find his son Isaac a wife from among his relatives in Mesopotamia, and not from among the Canaanites. Eliezer took the oath and set out on a 500-mile journey to Haran, also called the city of Nahor, and the place where his father Terah died, taking 10 camels laden with gifts in search of Isaac's bride. So with this, is Nahor and Haran were Abraham's brothers, and Haran had 3 children, Lot, Milcah, and Sarai. Haran died. Nahor married Milcah. Abraham married Sarai and adopted Lot. So this goes back to Haran was named after Abraham's brother Haran. The city of Nahor, they called it because it's also the city of Abraham's other brother Nahor. And this is where they ended up, Yahuwah had told Terah to take his family and to go, and Terah and them died. Terah and them settled in Haran, and that's where Abraham had to separate himself from his family and continue to follow the instructions of Yahuwah out into the towards the promised land. So then at the city well near Nahor, Eliezer made the camels kneel down and asked Adonai for a sign. When the maidens would come to the well, he would ask some for water to drink. But the woman who offered also to draw water for his camels as well, roughly 140 gallons, would be the one chosen by Yahuwah for Abraham's son. And boy, coming off of last week's where it was all about hospitality and generosity and serving, Eliezer wants to continue and find someone who is suitable for his master, who's similar to Isaac's mother, Sarah, which there's so little said about her, but what is said is that she was truly a righteous, a beautifully righteous, innocent, generous, loving servant of both her husband and the Most High. So he wants to find someone similar for Isaac, for the son, for Isaac. So as if scripted by divine providence, go figure, before he had finished praying, Rebecca, Abraham's nephew's daughter, came out with her water jar on her shoulder. Eliezer ran to her and asked her for a drink, and after giving him some water, generously offered to draw water for all 10 of his camels. That's a lot of water. After she passed the test, Eliezer gave her expensive rings and bracelets and inquired of her family status. When he learned that Yahuwah had led him directly to Abraham's direct kinsman, Rebecca was the granddaughter of Abraham's brother Nahor. He was overjoyed and thanked Yahuwah for the guidance and for success. Meanwhile, Rebecca ran home to tell her family what happened, and her brother Laban went out to meet Eliezer to come under their hospitality. And you have to understand that Laban should have been trained up by Nahor, his father, who is the son, so he's the brother of Abraham. They know these things. Abraham was chosen out to, become a kingdom of priests, kings and priests, but Nahor would have also known the teachings from his ancestors, which is in the line of Shem. So let's see. So once again, having hospitality. Eliezer come under their hospitality. Eliezer agreed, but refused to eat with them until he had clearly communicated the purpose of his mission and fulfilled his promise to his master Abraham. Eliezer told Abraham's nephew Bethuel and his family and the entire story of his journey from Abraham and Canaan, including his prayer to Yahuwah for the sign of the wife of Abraham's son, and how Rebekah had passed the divine test. He then asked them whether they would show kindness to Abraham and agree to give Rebekah as Isaac's wife or not, in order that Eliezer would know whether to turn to the right hand or to the left. Both Bethuel and Laban agreed that Yahuwah had indeed chosen Rebekah to be Abraham's son's wife and did not object to this match. Upon hearing this, Eliezer gave Rebekah more gifts, also gave gifts to the rest of the family. They then ate the meal together, and Eliezer spent the night. The following morning, Eliezer went to leave for Canaan with Rebekah, but her parents wanted her to stay another 10 days. When they finally asked her if she was willing to depart immediately, she said she was. So a lot of times before a wedding, the bride would prepare herself, kind of like the bride's supposed to be doing right now, preparing herself. And she would prepare herself with oils and things, beauty treatments to prepare herself for the wedding. Oil is a symbol of the Holy Spirit. So, like the 10 virgins, there were 5 wise and 5 foolish. The 5 wise had their lamps, which a lamp is a light unto our path, is the Torah. The lamp is the Torah, the word. And they also had oil, and they had extra oil, meaning they had the word, but they also had the spirit, oil, the anointing. The foolish, they had the Torah, they had the word, but they didn't have the spirit. Um, so the 10 days was actually a custom for the preparing with oils and beauty treatments and to prepare the bride, which we should be doing, preparing, being the wise virgins with the Torah, the word, and the Holy Spirit, the oil. So when they finally asked her if she was willing to depart immediately, she said she was, and left for Canaan without further delay with her maidservants. Eliezer then led Rebekah back to the land of Canaan, where she met and married Isaac. Isaac loved her and was comforted over the loss of his mother, Sarah. We are then told in his old age, Abraham was married to Keturah. Some claim that she was actually Hagar. And had 6 more sons. Abraham gave gifts to these children as a legacy, but left everything else he owned to Isaac, the appointed heir. The Parsha ends with Abraham's death at 175 years old, and how his 2 sons, Isaac and Ishmael, buried him in the cave of Mishpah next to his wife Sarah. As a postscript, we are also told of the descendants of Ishmael and of his death at 137 years old. So let's begin. Genesis 23, 1 through 25, 18. And Sarah lived 127 years, the years of the life of Sarah. And Sarah died in Kiriath Arba. And these are some words I want to look up because they have some really beautiful meanings. It's by there's a couple of different names for this area, and they all reference a different type of death and burial. I think I just was listening to something yesterday about it, and it was like, so Ryath Arba, and this and so that is Hebron. So see, it's also called Hebron. And there's a couple other names to it. So in the land of Canaan, and Abraham came to mourn Sarah and to weep for her. Then Abraham rose up from beside his dead and spoke to the sons of Heth, saying, I am a sojourner and a settler among you. Give me property for a burial site among you, so that I may bury my dead from my presence. And the sons of Heth answered Abraham, saying to him, Hear us, my master, you are a prince of Elohim among us. Bury your dead in the choicest of our burial sites. None of us withholds from you his burial site from burying your dead. So Abraham rose and bowed himself to the people of the land, the sons of Heth, and he spoke with them, saying, If it is your desire that I bury my dead from my presence, hear me, and approach Ephron, son of Tazor, for me, and let me have the cave of Machpelah, which he has, which is at the end of his field. Let him give it to me for the complete amount of silver as property for a burial site among you. So he's asking for the going rate. And Ephron dwelt among the sons of Heth, and Ephron the Hittite answered Abraham in the hearing of all the sons of Heth, all who entered at the gate of his city, saying, very manipulative in how he did this. No, my master, listen to me. I shall give you the field and the cave that is in it. I shall give it to you in the presence of the sons of my people. I shall give it to you. Bury your dead. And Abraham bowed himself down before the people of the land, and he spoke to Ephron in the hearing of the people of the land, saying, If only you would hear me, I shall give you the amount of silver for the field. Take it from me and let me bury my dead there. So it was offered to him for free, but Abraham's honorable, and he wants to. From what I understand, was the very first recording of deeding land, of someone buying and deeding, having a deed. So, and Ephraim answered Abraham, saying to him, "Oh shoot, hold on one second. I need to turn off a timer." I was going to do that before I started, but I didn't. I was cooking up some peas in my perpetual soup. I needed to cook more because they were a little bit crunchy. So anyway, back to this. Darn it. Now I don't remember what it was. Okay, down here. So, he's like, oh, well, if he's going to pay me, let him pay me. And he says, where was I? Ephraim answered Abraham, saying to him, my master, listen to me. The land is worth 400 shekels of silver. What is that between you and me? So bury your dead. And from, like I said, in researching, land was about 17 to 70 shekels. And Abraham listened to Ephron, and Abraham weighed out the silver for Ephron, which he had named in the hearing of the sons of Heth, 400 shekels of silver, currency of the merchants. Thus the field of Ephron, which was Machpelah, which was before Mamre, the field and the cave, which was in it, all the trees that were in the field, which were within all the surrounding borders, were deeded. So Abraham, as a possession in the presence of the sons of Heth, deeded to Abraham as a possession in the presence of the sons of Heth before all who went in at the gate of his city. And after this, Abraham buried Sarah, his wife, in the cave of the field of Machpelah before Mamre, that is Hebron, in the land of Canaan. Thus the field and the cave that is in it were deeded to Abraham by the sons of Heth as property for a burial site. 24. And Abraham was old, advanced in years, and Yahuwah had blessed Abraham in every way. And Abraham said to the oldest servant of the house, who ruled over, and it's interesting here because the oldest servant of the house would be Eleazar, but he doesn't name him here. Because remember, Eleazar was his, trusted servant who he actually, before Isaac was afraid he was going to have, that's who he was going to give his inheritance to. So that I make you swear by Yahuwah, the Elohim of the heavens and the Elohim of the earth, that you do not take a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites among whom I dwell, but to go to my land and to my relatives and take a wife for my son Yatzig. And the servant said to him, what if the woman refuses to follow me to this land? Do I then take your son back to the land for which you came? And Abraham said to him, beware lest you take my son back there. He's like, no going back. Yahuwah had us leave, and he had us leave for a reason. Good morning, sweetheart. Good morning. And so it's like, no, do not take him back there because they practiced, paganism back there. So Abraham said to, so Yahuwah Elohim of the heavens, who took me from my father's house and from the land of my relatives, and who spoke to me and swore to me, saying, to your seed I give this land, he sends his messenger before you, and you shall take a wife for your son from there. And if the woman refuses to follow you, then you shall be released from this oath. Only do not take my son back there. Then the servant put his hand under the thigh of Abraham, his master, and swore to him concerning this matter. And from what I understood, that was, a tradition that they did. That was basically he was swearing on his seed under his thigh. So, and if the servant took 10 of his master's camels and left. For all of his master's good gifts were in his hand, and he arose and he went to Aram Naharim, to the city of Nahor. And he made his camels kneel down outside the city by the fountain of the water at the evening time, when the women go out to draw water. And he said, Yahuwah, Elohim of my master Abraham, please cause her to meet before me this day and show loving commitment to my master Abraham. See, I am standing here by the fountain of water, and the daughters of the men of the city are coming out to draw water. Now let it be that the young woman to whom I say, please let down your jar to let me drink, and she says, drink and let me water your camels too, let her be the one whom you've appointed for your servant Yatzig. And let me know by this time you have shown loving commitment to my master. And it came to be, before he had ended speaking, that see, Rebecca, who was born to Bethuel, son of Milcah, the wife of Nahor, Abraham's brother, came out with her jar on her shoulder. And the young woman was very good looking, a maiden, no man had known her. And she went down to the fountain and filled her jar and came up. And the servant ran to meet her and said, please let me drink a little water from your jar. And she said, drink, my master. And she hurried and let her jar down to her hand and gave him a drink. And when she had finished giving him a drink, she said, let me draw water for your camels too, until they had finished drinking. So 140 gallons for 10 camels? She was busy, and that took a long time. We don't think about it, in our fast-paced world, to slow down and really imagine what it was like and how long that had to have taken. And she hurried and emptied her jar into the trough and ran back to the fountain to draw water and drew for all of his camels. And watching her, the man remained silent in order to know whether Yahuwah had prospered his way or not. And it came to be, when the camels had finished drinking, that the man took a gold nose ring weighing half of a shekel and two bracelets for her wrists weighing 10 shekels of gold, and said, whose daughter are you? Please inform me. Is there room in your father's house for us to spend the night? And she said to him, I am the daughter of Bethuel, Milcah's son, whom she bore to Nahor. And she said to him, we have both straw and fodder enough and rooms to spend the night. So once again, hospitality. This is important because the father obviously loves hospitality, because these families were blessed because of their faith and their generosity and their hospitality. I mean, they're going to feed his 10 camels and him, and I'm sure the other servants that were with him. I'm sure he didn't go there by himself. And the man bowed his head and worshiped Yahuwah. Love that. And he said, blessed is Yahuwah, Elohim of my master Abraham, which I find is really interesting. He's like, oh, he's the Elohim of my master, but he's not, it's just saying about himself. He's the Elohim of his master. Anyway, who has not forsaken his loving commitment and his truth toward my master. As for me, being on the way, Yahuwah led me to the house of my master's brothers. Then the young woman ran and informed those in her mother's house these matters. And Rivkah had a brother whose name was Laban. And Laban ran out to the fountain. And it came to be, when he saw the nose ring and the bracelets on his sister's wrists, and when he heard the words of his sister Rivkah saying, thus the man spoke to me, that he went to the man and saw him standing by the camels at the fountain. And he said, come in, O blessed of Yahuwah. Why do you stand outside? I myself have prepared the house and a place for the camels. So the man came into the house while he unloaded the camels and provided straw and fodder for the camels and water to wash his feet and the feet of the men who were with him, and set food before him to eat. But he said, let me not eat until I have spoken my word. And he said, speak on. And he said, I am Abraham's servant, and Yahuwah has blessed my master exceedingly, and he has become great. And he has given him flocks and herds and silver and gold and male and female servants and camels and donkeys. And Sarah, my master's wife, bore a son to my master when she was old, and he has given him to all that he has. And my master made me swear, saying, do not take a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites in whom land I dwell, but go to my father's house and to my relatives and take a wife for my son. And I said to my master, what if the woman does not follow me? But he said to me, Yahuwah before whom I walk sends his messenger with you and shall prosper your way. And look at the faith of Abraham. These last couple of last weeks and this week have really pricked my heart, and for faith and for hospitality. And this is who we're, Father Abraham, this is who we're supposed to be like, as humans serving Yah. And It's just, I love this. So you shall take a wife for my son from my relatives and from my father's house. Then when you go to my relatives, you are, then when you go to my, wait a minute, and before whom I walk sends his messenger with you and shall prosper your way, and you shall take a wife from my son, from my relatives and my father's house. Then when you go to my relatives, you are to be released from this oath. And if they do not give her to you, then you are released from my oath. And this day I came to the fountain and said, Yahuwah Elohim of my master Abraham, please, if you are prospering the way which I am going, see, I am standing by the fountain of water. And when the young woman comes out to draw water, and I say to her, please give me a little water from your jar to drink. And she says to me, drink and let me draw waters for your camel too. Let her be the woman whom Yahuwah has appointed for my master's son. I had not yet ended speaking in my heart when, see, Ribkah was coming out with her jar on her shoulder, and she went down to the fountain and drew water. And I said to her, please let me drink. And she hurried and let her jar down from her shoulder and said, drink and let me water your camels too. So I drank, and she watered the camels too. And I asked her and said, whose daughter are you? And she said, the daughter of Bethuel, Nahor's son, whom Milcah bore to him. Then I put a nose ring on her nose and a bracelet on her wrist, and I bowed my head and worshipped Yahuwah and blessed Yahuwah, Elohim of my master Abraham, who had led me, my master Abraham, who had led me in the true way to take the daughter of my master's brother for his son. And now, if you are going to show loving commitment and truth to my master, let me know, and if not, let me know, so that I might turn to the right or to the left. And Laban answered Bethuel and said, Bethuel to, and Laban answered Bethuel to and said, the matter comes from Yahuwah. We are not able to speak to you either good or evil. See, Ribkah is before you. Take her and go, and let her be your master's son's wife, as Yahuwah has spoken. And it came to be when Abraham's servant heard their words that he bowed himself towards the earth before Yahuwah. And the servant brought out ornaments of silver and ornaments of gold, ornaments he gave them to Ribkah. He also gave costly gifts to her brother and to her mother. And he and the men who were with him ate and drank and spent the night. There we go. He had men with him. And when they arose in the morning, they said, let me go to my master. But her brother and her mother said, let the young woman stay with us a few days, at least 10, then you go. And he said, do not delay me, since Yahuwah has prospered my way. Let me go, so that I go to my master. And they said, let us call the young woman and ask her. So they called Ribkah and said to her, are you going with this man? And she said, I shall go. So they let her go. So they let go Ribkah, their sister, and her nurse, and Abram's servant and his men. And they blessed Ribkah and said to her, let our sister become the mother of thousands and of 10,000s, and let your seed possess the gates of those who hate them. And Ribkah and her young women arose and rode on the camels and followed the men. So the servant took Ribkah and left. And Yatzig came from the way of Beor Lahani Roy, for he dwelt in the south. And Yatzig went out to meditate in the field in the evening. So he's going out for evening prayer to spend time with the Father. And he lifted his eyes and he looked, and he saw camels coming. And Ribkah lifted her eyes. When she saw Yatzig, she dismounted from her camel, and she said to the servant, who is this man walking in the field to meet us? And the servant said, it is my master. So she took a veil and covered herself. And the servant told Yatzig all the matters he had done, and Yatzig brought her into his mother Sarah's tent. And he took Ribkah, and she became his wife, and he loved her. Thus Yatzig was comforted after his mother's death. 25. And Abraham took another wife, whose name was Keturah. And she bore him Zimran, and Yokshan, and Midian, and which from like the Midianites, and Yashbag, and Shua. And Yasham brought forth Sheba and Dedan, and the sons of Dedan were Asherim and Lechsim and Lunamim. And the sons of Midian were Ephah and Epher and Hanok and Abada and Eladah, and all these were the children of Keturah. Now Abraham gave all that he had to Yatzig, but to the sons of the concubines meaning Keturah and Hagar, so Ishmael, the sons of but to the sons of the concubine who Abraham had, Abraham gave gifts while he was still living and sent them away from his son Yatzig eastward to the land of the east, which so like the Midianites and the Persians and the Medes, so like Iran to the east. And these are all the years of Abraham's life, which he lived 175 years. And he sent the other sons away from Yatzig, the seed of promise. And Abraham breathed his last and died in a good old age, aged and satisfied. I like that. Aged and satisfied. It's kind of how I feel right now. Aged and satisfied. I am so incredibly blessed, and my life has been amazing. I'm aged and blessed, aged and satisfied. And was gathered to his people. And his son Yatzig and Ishmael buried him in the cave of Machpelah. Interesting, just Yatzig and Ishmael. Where's the other sons? Why aren't they? I guess they went away and stayed away. And Ishmael, I think, from what I remember, he lived out in the wilderness towards Egypt, which is, I think, in the south. I was never good at geometry, but I'm really enjoying it. Geography, but I'm really enjoying it now as it, in studying the word. So the field which Abraham purchased from the sons of Heth, wait a minute, go back up here. They buried him in the cave of Mishpah, which is before Mamre, in the field of Ephron, son of Seor, the Hittite. And the field which Abraham purchased from the sons of Heth, where Abraham was buried with Sarah, his wife. And it came to be after the death of Abraham that Elohim blessed his son Yatzig, and Yatzig dwelled in Berer Lahai Roi. And this is the genealogy of Ishmael, Abram's son, whom Hagar, the Mitzrayite, Sarah's female servant, bore to Abraham. And these were the names of the sons of Ishmael by their names according to their genealogy or their generations. The firstborn of Ishmael, Nebaioth, then Kedar, and Abiel, and Mibsen, and Mishma, and Duma, and Massa, Hedar, Tima, Utar, Naphish, and Kedemah. These were the sons of Ishmael, and these were their names by their towns and their settlements, 12 chiefs according to their tribes. So these were the princes of Arabia, because that's where they went and dwelt, in Arabia. So the 12 princes of Arabia, according to their tribes. And these were the years of the life of Ishmael, 137 years. And he breathed his last and died and was gathered to his people. And they dwelt from Havilah as far as Shur, which is east of Mitzrayim, as you go towards Asher. And he settled before all of his brothers. I think that is 25:18. There we go. So next is 1 Kings 1 in the Haftorah, 1 through 31. And so, so let's see where there's some parallels, where if we didn't have the Torah, where the Haftorah could teach us what the Torah, teach us Torah, teach us his word, his ways. And the sovereign Dawi was old and advanced in years, and they covered him with garments, but he could not get warm. So his servant said to him, let them seek for our master, the sovereign, a young woman, a maiden, and she shall stand before the sovereign and be his companion, and shall lie in your bosom, so that our master, the sovereign, gets warm. And they sought a beautiful, so it was like going and searching out Ribkah to serve her master. And they sought for a beautiful young woman in all the border of Israel, and found Abishag, the Shunammite. and brought her to the sovereign. And the young woman was very beautiful, and she was a companion for the sovereign and served him, but the sovereign did not know her. So he's too old to have sex, but she was a companion in his old age. That's really beautiful. And Adonaiah's son, the Haggith, son of Haggith, exalted him, saying, I reign. And he prepared for himself a chariot and a horseman. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry about that. I meant to decline the call, not accept the call. Okay, so, and Adonaiah, son of Haggith, exalted himself, saying, I reign. And he prepared for himself a chariot and horsemen and 50 men to run before him. Now his father had not worried him at any time by saying, why have you done so? He was also very good looking, and he was born after Absalom. And he talked with Joab, son of Tushiah, with Abiathar the priest, and they supported Adonaiah. But Tusdog the priest and Benyahu, son of Yahoiada, and Nathan the prophet, and Shimei and Rei, the mighty men who belonged to David, were not with Adonaiah. And Adonaiah slaughtered sheep and cattle. I'm so sorry. 1 through 31. Okay. They slaughtered sheep and cattle and fatlings by the store of Zoelath, which is in En Rogal. He also invited all of his brothers, the sovereign's son, and all the men of Yehuda, servants of the sovereign. But he did not invite Nathan the prophet, or Benyahu, or the mighty men of Shalom, his brother, Shalom. Nathan then spoke to Bathsheba, the mother of Solomon, saying, have you not heard that Adonaiah, son of Haggith, has become sovereign, and Dawid, our master, does not know it? And now come, let me give you advice and deliver your own life and the life of your son Shalom. Go immediately to sovereign Dawid and say to him, did you not, my master, O sovereign, swear to your female servant, saying, certainly your son Shalom shall reign after me, and he shall sit on my throne? When then has Adonaiah become sovereign? Look, while you are still speaking there with the sovereign, let me come in after you and confirm your words. And Bathsheba went into the room to the sovereign. Now the sovereign was very old, and Abishag the Shunammite was serving the sovereign. And Bathsheba bowed and did obeisance. I can't pronounce that one word. Anyway, to the sovereign. She bowed. And the sovereign said, what do you wish? And she said to him, my master, you swore by Yahuwah your Elohim to your female servant, saying, certainly Shalom, your son, shall reign after me, and he shall sit on my throne. And now look, Adonaiah has become sovereign. And now my master, the sovereign, you do not know about it. And he has slaughtered great numbers of bulls and fatlings and sheep, and has invited all the sons of the sovereign, and Abiathar the priest, and Joab, the commander of the army, but he did not invite Shalom, your servant. And you, my master, O sovereign, the eyes of all Israel are on you to declare to them who is going to sit on the throne of my master, the sovereign, after him. Otherwise, it shall be when the master, the sovereign, rests with his fathers, that I and the son of Shalom shall be considered sinners. They would kill off their brothers, so they didn't have to contend for the throne. And see, while she was still speaking with the sovereign, Nathan the prophet also came in. So they informed the sovereign, saying, here is Nathan the prophet. And when he came in before the sovereign, he bowed down before the sovereign with his face to the ground. And Nathan said, my master, O sovereign, you said, Adonai shall reign after me, and he shall, O master, sovereign, you have said, Adonai shall reign after me and shall sit on my throne. For he has gone down today and has slaughtered great numbers of bulls and fatlings and sheep, and has invited all the sovereign's son and the commanders of the armies and Abiathar the priest. And look, they are eating and drinking before him, and they say, let sovereign Adonai live. But he has not invited me, your servant, nor Chesdog the priest, nor Benenahu the son of Yohada, nor your servant Shelomah. If this matter is from my master, the sovereign, then you did not let your servant know who should sit on the throne, and my master, the sovereign, after him. And sovereign David answered and said, call Bathsheba to me. So she came into the sovereign's presence and stood before the sovereign, and the sovereign took an oath and said, as Yahuwah lives, who has ransomed my life out of all distress, even as I swore to you by Yahuwah Elohim of Israel, saying, certainly Shalom, your son shall reign after me, and he shall sit on my throne in my place, even so I do this day. And Bathsheba bowed her face to the earth and did obeisance to the sovereign and said, let my master sovereign David live forever. Next is Matthew 2, 1 through 23. And it came to be in those days that a decree went out from Caesar Augustus for all the world to be registered. This took place as the first registration while Quirinius was governing Syria. And all were going to be registered, each one to his own city. And Joseph also went up from Galilee, Joseph from Galilee, out of the city of Nazareth to Yehuda, to the city of David, which is called Bethel Lehem, because it was the house of the lineage of David, because Joseph was in the line of David, to be registered with Miriam, who was engaged to him, being pregnant. Had to have been very awkward. And it came to be that while they were there, the days were fulfilled for her to give birth. And she gave birth to her firstborn son and wrapped him up and laid him down in a feeding trough, because there was no room for them in a lodging place. And in the same country, there were shepherds living out in the fields, keeping watch over their flocks by night. And look, a messenger of Yahuwah stood before them, and the esteem of Yahuwah shone around them, and they were greatly afraid. And the messenger said to them, do not be afraid, for look, I bring to you good news of great joy, which shall be to all people, because there was born to you today in the city of David a Savior, who is Messiah, the Master. And this is a sign to you. You shall find a baby wrapped up, lying in a feeding trough. And suddenly there was with the messenger a crowd of heavenly hosts, praising Elohim and saying, esteem to Elohim in the highest, and on earth peace among men with whom he is pleased. And it came to be, when the messengers had gone away from them unto the heaven, that the shepherds said to each other, indeed, let us go to Bethlehem and see this matter that has taken place, which the master has made known to us. And they came in haste and found Miriam and Joseph and a baby lying in a feeding trough. And having seen, they made known the matter which was spoken to them concerning the child. And all those that heard marveled at what the shepherds said to them. But Miriam kept all of these matters, considering them in her heart. And the shepherds returned, boasting and praising Elohim for all they had heard and seen, as it is spoken to them. And when 8 days were completed for him to be circumcised, his name was called Yahuwah, the name given by the messenger before he was conceived in the womb. And when the days of her cleansing according to the Torah, so see, Mary and Joseph are Torah observant. They follow the Torah. They follow the instructions. They were completed, which I think is 80 days for women after they have, no, I think it's 40 days after a woman gives birth to a boy, 40 or 60. I'll have to look. What's it called? Days of her cleansing. Days of her cleansing. I'm going to look that up. According to the Torah of Moshe were completed. They brought him to Jerusalem to present him to Yahuwah. And there's that. And then 27, 3 through 10. I am sorry. I don't know how that happened. Although I guess it's not where I was supposed to read. That is weird. Matthew 2, flip to the wrong place. Matthew 2, 1 through 23. And Yeshua, having been born in Bethlehem of Yehuda in the days of Herodes the sovereign, see, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem, saying, where is he who has been born sovereign of Yehuda? For we saw a star in the east and have come to reverence him. And Herodes the sovereign, having heard it, was troubled, and was all Jerusalem with him. And having gathered all the chief priests and the scribes and the people together, he asked them where the Messiah was to be born. And they said, in Bethlehem of Yehuda. And thus it has been written by the prophets. But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Yehuda, are by no means least among the rulers of Yehuda, for out of you shall come a ruler who shall shepherd my people Israel. Then Herodias, having called the Magi secretly, learned exactly from them what time the star appeared, and having sent them to Bethlehem, he said, go and search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring back word to me, so that I too might go and do reverence to him. And after having heard the sovereign, they went, and see the star which they had seen in the east went before them until it came and stood over the child, where the child was. And seeing the star, they rejoiced with exceeding great joy. And coming into the house, they saw the child with Miriam, his mother, and fell down and did reverence to him. And opening their treasures, they presented to him gifts of gold and frankincense and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream that they should not return to Herodes, they departed for their own country by another way. And when they had left, seeing a messenger of Yahuwah appeared to Joseph in a dream, saying, arise, take the child and his mother, and flee to Mitzrayim, to Egypt, and remain there until I bring you word, for Herodes is about to seek the child to destroy him. And rising up, he took the child and his mother by night and departed to Mitzrayim, and remained there until the death of Herodes, to fill what was spoken by Yahuwah through the prophet, saying, out of Mitzrayim I have called my son. Then Herodes, having seen that he was fooled by the Magi, was greatly enraged, and he sent forth and slew all the male children in Bethlehem and in all its borders, from 2 years old and under, according to the time which he had exactly learned from the Magi. When then was filled what was spoken by Yirmiyahu the prophet, saying, a voice was heard in Ramah, wailing and weeping and great mourning, Rahel weeping for her children, refusing to be comforted because they were no more. And Herodes, having died, seeing a messenger of Yahuwah appeared to a dream to Joseph, saying, arise and take the child and his mother and go into the land of Israel, for those seeking the life of the child are dead. And rising up, he took the child and his mother and came to the land of Israel. But hearing that Arocleos was reigning over Yehuda instead of his father, Herodes, he was afraid to go there. And having been warned in a dream, he departed to parts of Galilee, and came and dwelt in the city called Nazareth, thus to fulfill what was spoken by the prophets, he shall be called a Nazarene. Next, Matthew 27, 3 through 10. Then Yehuda, he who delivered him up, having seen that he had been condemned, repented, returning the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priests and the elders, saying, I have sinned. Interesting. Sorry, I was just like, what is going on here? So I'm going to go back up to 27:1 and start there. And the morning having come, all of the chief priests and elders of the people took counsel against Yeshua, so as to put him to death. And having bound him, they led him away and delivered him to Pontius Pilate, the governor. Then Yehuda, which is Judas, who was delivered him up, having seen that he had been condemned, repented, returned the 30 pieces of silver. So he repented. Interesting. I've never seen that before. Return the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priests and to the elders, saying, I have sinned in delivering up an innocent blood. And they said, what is that to us? You see it to it. And throwing down the pieces of silver in the dwelling place, he left and went and hanged himself. And the chief priests took the silver pieces and said, it is not right to put them into the treasury, seeing that they are the price of blood. So they took counsel and brought them to the potter's field for the burial of strangers. Therefore, that field today has been called the field of blood until today. Then was fulfilled what was spoken by Jeremiah the prophet, saying, and they took the 30 pieces of silver, the price of him who was pierced, on whom they of the children of Israel set a price, and gave them for a potter's field, as Yahuwah had ordered me. Next is Luke 9. Luke 9, 57 through 62. And it came to be as they journeyed on the way that someone said to him, Master, I shall follow you wherever you go. And Yeshua said to him, the foxes have holes and the birds of the heavens have nests, but the Son of Adam has nowhere to lay his head. And he said to another, follow me. But he said, Master, let me go first and bury my father. And Yeshua said to him, let the dead bury their own dead, but you go and announce the reign of Elohim. And another also said, Master, I shall follow you, but let me first say goodbye to those in my house. But Yeshua said to them, no one having put his hand to the plow and looking back is fit for the reign of Elohim. And 1 Corinthians 15. Through 57. And this I say, brothers, that flesh and blood is unable to inherit the reign of Elohim. Neither does corruption inherit incorruption. See, I speak a secret to you. We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed. In a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trumpet, for the trumpet shall sound, and the dead shall be raised incorruptible, and we shall be changed. For this corruptible has to be put on, incorruption, and this mortal put on immortality. And when the corruptible has put on incorruption, and this mortal has put on immortality, then shall come to be the word that has been written. Death is swallowed up in overcoming. O death, where is your sting? O Sheol, where is your overcoming? And the sting of death is the sin, and the power of sin is the Torah. Wait a minute. And the sting of death is the sin, and the power of the sin is the Torah. But thanks to Elohim, who gives us the overcoming through our Master Yeshua, Messiah. So that we got all through them too, which is awesome. And you know what? I wanted to go back real quick. Remember I was saying I wanted to look up the names of the burial place, the city. And so where Abraham, where he died in the cave of, which is before Mamre in the field of Ephron, son of Sur, the Hittite, the field which Abraham purchased from the son Abraham was buried. I thought that it had. And Abraham breathed his last and died in a good old age and satisfied and gathered to his people, and his son Yatsing and Ishmael buried him in the cave of Mitzah, which is before Mamre. So maybe Mamre. In the field of Ephron, son of Seor, the Hittite. So I just wanted to see the different names because I think there was like 5 different names. I'll have to go watch the video again. So there we have it. We made it just under an hour. Be blessed. Thank you so much for joining me. And I will see you again next week. And oh, look, a couple people have joined. Hi, I can't see comments. I'll have to figure that out. I think I have to use my computer or something. But thank you for joining us. Go back and watch it from the beginning. Get your Bibles out. Read along with it. And let me know your thoughts. Let me know what the Father reveals to you during your reading and your study of this week's portion. and about, Sarah's life and death. Be blessed. See you next week. Bye. I'll figure this out. There we go.